Welcome to second panel. Welcome to second panel of today, and I'm so excited to announce this is also an important topic, like for everyone is curious, and still researchers are, keep going in this 21st century in modern digital age. Decision making in transfers by data. We are going to discuss today by moderating DILMEN. Very welcome, communicator director at Compersonator. Welcome again. And dearest Mr. Tarkan BATGUN, founder at Compersonator. Very welcome again. And speakers keep going. Stan Paul MIHAI, agent at First Sport Agency. Welcome. Nicola INNOCENTIN, CEO of Global Football Service. Have a great talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome again. So we are talking a different topic of data scouting. So we have lots of clubs, we have lots of players, and the agents are the people who are matching the right club to the right footballer. But how? This is, I think, a part of an art, because you know that you are going to a club and you have a great player and you have to convince this people that you have a real potential, even if it's a youngster or even if it's a very experienced player. So much and different difficulties all in this topic. So I want to start with Nicola INNOCENTIN. So I'm going to ask you, you have a potential player, let's say it's me. I'm a very potential midfielder, for example, and I'm only 19 years old, and I also played in lower divisions. And you
Quite
think...
a definition, huh?
So how do you understand my potential, and how do you decide which club I would play and be successful?
Hello?
Hello. Hello. Yeah.
Yes. First of all, thanks for having me here. And to reply to your question, I got the chance to cover different positions in the past. And one of those positions was head of recruitment of Bologna, a Serie A club. And I remember that back then I was particularly targeting young players because our budget was not that big. So I tried to identify talent on an early stage. And I remember that I went close to Salzburg to watch a national team games between France and Austria, under 19. Under 19, it's already an age where you can see, a player pretty well. I mean, you can see if he has that special things that potentially can lead him to become a pro, But I think one of the most difficult parts for a scout, it's to forecast the progression of a player, And I noticed during this journey, let's say, that I was paying attention to details that normally you don't look at when you are analyze a player that is already mature. For example, the personality is one of the aspects that it's very important, And before I was listening to the previous speech about data, I believe that data are very important, are extremely important. Why? Because we cannot consider data only the one that we find into the software platform, A data is also the meeting with the players. You can get some information, so some data from that. Data is also your perception while watching a game. So back to what I was saying in the beginning, personality is one of those aspects. The capability of a player to try things he wants to try, because sometimes you can be much better than other player of your same age group, but then when you become a pro, you're not one of few, you are one of many great players in the fields. So the capability to constantly try to do things in what you believe and show your skills, it's a very good attitude. And I remember in that particular case, I scouted a player called Safir Taider that played in the World Cup with Algeria in Brazil. And when I brought him before to take him to Bologna, I went to Grenoble because he was playing there. And he came without agent, just himself. We met in a bar, you know, and he was very young but very determined to build his own career. So that information, together with the other that I've collected, you know, gave me a good picture about the potential of this player. And when he came, I remember he joined our team in the pre-season with few days delay. And the first match he played, the friendly game, the first ball he got a chance to have was a free kick. He took the ball, he put it there, boom, he shoot, he scored. Like he was in the team in the last 10 years. So, again, you have to, you know, identify this aspect in potential talents and combine that with all the data, because it's not one thing that counts, it's a variety of information that you need to collect, and of course filter that based on your experience, or as they told before, based on what you are looking for in that particular moment.
So, Mihai, let's continue with Nico's words. So you have a player and you know the potential, but the most important part is to convince the decision makers. So what kind of data can help you with the convincing, and how would you use your information, your data, to convince the decision maker in the clubs?
First of all, thank you for the invitation here. I'm very happy to be here. Secondly, regarding your question, before to propose the player to head department, scout department or sport director, we check and we use impersonator to take the data regarding the player. If we don't consider the player is match with the team, we not propose. So basically, before to show to the sport director or to the head of the department, we check the player and we go to meet him, to see if he's a good player for that team. Otherwise, me like an agent and also the sport director, the head of scout, they are losing the time, and it's not necessary to send the player for nothing, you know. So I believe it's better in our job to use the platform to see if the player is matched for that team, you know. So, and regarding your question, it's very important the character of the player, first of all. You know, it's important to meet him, to see if he wants to go in there, and after that, everything with data, with everything, we go in to propose him to the clubs, you know. And after that is decision of the club, not my decision, you know.
Of course, the decision will be in the club, but this is an art, I think, convincing. You know, every biggest universities in the world are working on this convincing the decision makers in all professionalism. And Tarkan, BATGUN, how would data help agents to understand the potential and convincing the decision makers? How a tool help with this art?
Well, firstly, again, there's two different centuries with regard to agency, player, and sports director owner relationship. Before the pandemics, after the pandemics, because as you know, I have been speaking with major agencies and sports directors and member of the media almost on an everyday basis. So the behavior of agency had to change dramatically. What has changed? First, creating a loyalty through data. So how does that happen? Let's say MIHAI has a player, played the game, And a couple of days later, MIHAI starts sending reports to the player. Understandable reports. Most basic reports. Because, as you know, players, unfortunately, if they are not in the top 5 destinations, they start becoming a player at the age of 17, and education, unfortunately, is put behind. So therefore, the understanding of tactics, if the coach is data-oriented coach, and talking about numbers inside football, and your player lacks this, well, you need to educate your player first by identifying his own positional data. Okay, let's say I'm a center forward, I'm your player, you send me the data, I am immediately knowing who is in that particular week past me. Where is my level in that particular league? Where is my level in the league average? So the player is in constant knowing of what's going on about himself and about other players in the same position. Well, how do you support the sports director? So once, basically, again, feeding the decision maker constantly, every 2-3 weeks. Okay, if my player did something spectacular, my buyer needs to know. So therefore, I feed the decision maker, the coach, or whoever. And also in the recent trend of change, managing players' social media is extremely important. It wasn't important before, but the public has a lot of potential now to promote agencies' player. If you prove your player is worthy to make news. So, let's say, for example, your player achieved something in the top 5 league level. He is the best jewel maker compared to 5 leagues. Well, that's a news. Who makes this news? It's the agent. Agent brings it in front of public. Agent says, this is my player. Agent also engages sports director, coach. Look, my player was the first one in the ranking in Europe in such and such data. So therefore, creating the loyalty between your own players, continuously supporting the player through social media, continuously seek for news about the player. What kind of data is worth talking about my player? So therefore, agency's job is no longer selling the player and leaving. It's all about managing the player, managing in everything of the player. But and also with regard to coaching, because when I met Nicola INNOCENTIN was the original person who brought Mancini to Galatasaray. And now what he's doing, he's now in the FIFA
Diploma in club management.
Diploma in club management. Why? Because there is no end to knowledge. No end to knowledge. No end. I'm a learner. Because I need to keep the same level of performance for Tarkan BATGUN. What is going on in this industry? What is going on in the agencies? For example, Nico and Jose made a presentation about new FIFA ruling. Well, that's my job to understand the data, which was too complicated. And I asked so many questions. Why? Because I want to know. I'm a learner. Rules are constantly changing. Football rules are constantly changing. For example, I met MIHAI introduced me to Daniel Panko yesterday. I sat down with Panku because I need to know he is under 20
National team Romania.
national team Romania head coach. What is happening? I asked him, how come Romania is not producing many stars? So we went into comparison later and looked, the new generation is amazing. So then that becomes the federation's responsibility. For example, as you know, I spent 25 years in Australia.
Yeah.
Australian Football Federation opened the camps in Italy to collect all these Australian players there. Why? Because they want to be in touch. So the data is a touch.
Yeah,
Touch to sports director, touch to player and so on.
yeah,
Touch to the fans as a sports director point of view, because you need to engage the fans now. Well, therefore, you need to know what's going on in your team and others to be able to tell. Let's say you're a Juventus sports director, you need to know what's going on in the data of the other teams. And the way of coaches talking in the interviews changed a lot. Why? Because they need to know the numbers. Why? Because the fans are much more aware of data.
yeah.
Yes, of
So you were just telling this agent and player communication, and I remember the story of Mina Raiola, who is recently passed away, with Ibrahimovic. So in Ibrahimovic's book, he's telling about when Mina Raiola comes to Malmö, when he was a young player, and Mina Raiola was taking the data with him, and he was saying that you're bad in this, you're bad in the statics, and you're bad in the statics, and this is not worth, you cannot do this with these stats. You have to improve, you have to improve. And Ibrahimovic tells in his biography that in the first years of his career was only to convince Mina Raiola that he can improve with that data. So, and after that, of course, he made impressive career, but the first years, probably the MIHAI, probably the most difficult years of a player is the starting point, because a player thinks that he is very good, but he cannot understand that he has to improve. So how do you use this data to improve your player's performance?
Like Tarkan say, you take the data, you go to meet your player, you show him where is weak, where is strong, and together with him you start to help him to change everything what is wrong with him. So basically, like again Tarkan say, we manage the player everywhere in everything. His career, what he going to invest, social media, and everything. So regarding this, we go to the data. He will go to check it, and we start to help him to improve the performance. And like this, we showing to him another players in the same position in the league is better like him. You can motivate him to improve his career. You know.
Yeah. So Nicola, another part of being an agent is to talking with the head coach, because there are different head coaches. As Tarkan said, some of coaches are describing the match performance with data, and some of them says that yes, we were good and the referee was bad. And
We had a very interesting story with Marcelo Bielsa, and I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah. So yes, we were good. The referee was bad. So let's get to the next match, and so. So no information, nothing. But it is changing. But the change is not that fast. You know, some of very big head coaches can use the data more or less, and some of them are more interested in data. So how is your communication with the head coach?
Well, normally, head coach is not really the person I used to talk to when I have to propose a player, because sometimes he's the decision maker, sometimes not, sometimes he's the sport director. So first of all, you need to identify who is the person you have to talk to. And back to what Tarkan was saying, I think it's very important to highlight again the importance of data, because many people of the same business can profit from the data. We mentioned before, we have the player that can use data to monitoring their own performances. Okay, you have the sport director that can use the data for scouting, but also use the data to justify with the owner of the president why this player and not that player. And then there are scouts that have argument today that before were very subjective, that today are more objective, because numbers don't lie. So if I have to present a player, sometimes I have a conversation with sports director, with one in particular in Italy that I like very much. His name is Walter Sabatini. I like to mention him because when you present a player to him, immediately he asks you, why do you present this player to me? So he wants to know the reason behind, why I do believe this player is good. And then you have to bring a concrete argument. You cannot say because for me is good. That's not an answer. That's not enough. You have to bring arguments. And back to what Tarkan mentioned before. Back in November, I had
If you guys can't put the photo of Bielsa?
I have it here.
Oh, you have it?
If the click works.
Again,
Does
please.
it work? Or is not?
Can we see it? Can we see the presentation on the big screen?
There is two screens.
Yes.
Yeah, this is.
So here I was with Marcelo Bielsa in Poland, visiting the training facilities of Lega Warsaw. We made a master class the day before, and working with Marcelo, we came up to talk about scouting players. So I was asking him, Marcelo, how you identify players? And he told me, look, I have my staff of people that constantly used to monitoring, some championship. They know what kind of player I like to have, with which characteristic. But recently, because I come from Rosario Central in Argentina, I spent a month there, and I went to watch several games of Rosario Central. And only because I was there, only because I spent a month watching this team, I was able to identify a very good player, a very good left back. And that for me is a crack, he told me, but they already sold him to Elche for a couple of million, which for me is not that much money. And then he challenged me saying, how do you scout player? And I say, well, it's different when you are an agent or intermediary and you have to do the job of, let's say, 50 sport director, because you cannot offer to Bayern Munich what you offer to Sassuolo, for example. So you need to be able to switch, and immediately identify what fits for a reality than another. But I told him, look, if I would be a sport director, what I really needed to save is the time to filter all the opportunities. So this is also why Y-Scout is a company that was a game changer in the industry, because I remember when I was visiting some club and some sport director, I couldn't even see the sport director because he was behind 100 videotape, that most probably he could have never watched, coming from all over the world. So today data give you also the possibility to shortcut this process. And I say to Marcelo, look Marcelo, it took 1 month to you to identify this player, his name is Blanco, he's a left back, and realize that he's good. Okay? I'm not saying that it's not necessary, because it is necessary to go watch the player. Actually, we both agree that before to choose a player, you need to watch at least 20 games on video and then some live video of the player. But I say, if I would be a sport director, I don't have that much time because the season lasts 11 months, 12 months, 10 months, depend. So I need really to stress the research, to shortcut the research, and the artificial intelligence should help me to do that, as well my scouting department. So I told him, look, and what I'm showing you now, it's exactly what I show Marcelo. I show the app of Comparisonator. It's working. Let me see. Okay. And this is what happened. I say, look, you spend 1 month more or less to identify the player. The player was in Rosario Central, right? And you say, yes, okay. I never watched Rosario Central playing, but let's the artificial intelligence help me to see if what you have seen live, it's true based on data. Let me see if it's working. Normally it should move.
Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
it's moving?
Can you move the
No, I
video?
think it's moving. Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
okay, great.
Okay.
So we enter into Rosario Central team, and I was looking close to him about this player. The player is over there, Lautaro Blanco. Okay? You have 2 columns here. The first column, okay, it's about the ranking of the player in his own team. Why? Because for me it's important, if I end up to analyze a team, to know immediately who are the best in that position. And he was, let me go back, maybe. Okay, now we're starting again. Okay. So
Just press
again,
pause there.
the first column, I will show you here. The first column shows the ranking of the player in his own team. So it's a number 2. But actually, if you go deeper, it's the number 1, because the number 1 in the team is a central back. So he's going to be the number 1 left back as a defender in his own team. The second column is 2 and show the ranking of this player in the whole Argentinian league. So in this time, the time we spent together by talking about this, I have a clear proof that Lautaro Blanco is definitely one of the best left back in Argentina. I never seen this player live. I never watched a game of Rosario Central, And I told Marcelo, look, this is what a sport director needs with his own scouting department. He needs to identify the best player in each country, in each position, in the shorter time possible. Then he said to me, yes, but then how do you know that this left back is better than the 3 left back, the best left back in Brazil? Then I say, yes, this is where you go further with the analysis. This is where data can help you more, okay? So, at the end of the day, people has to do their own job, in their position. So I expected that before I had a nice conversation with Michael about it, in a club, there are people that should not go into details. There are other people that go into details, collect this information, come to me as a sport director, and then they say, look, these are the 3 best left back in Argentina based on data. Okay, let's shortlist this name. Then you do the same in Brazil, you do the same in Serbia, in Romania, Yes. So definitely data today can help to shortcut the process. Because otherwise, either you have 20 scouts in your team, that I don't think even Manchester United has, or there is no other way to analyze and filter so many data in such a short time. Not considering, I've seen recently a post, an interesting post of my friend Max Legat from Basel that was mentioning the impact that a scout has with the environment, which is also something to consider. They take a lot of planes, they drive 100 miles with the cars. So sometimes they say, if we can avoid, to travel that much, why not? Because in 5 minutes, I got the same information that Marcelo got in 1 month watching this player live. So I wanted to tell you this little anecdote to highlight the importance that for me data.
So what did Marcelo say when he saw that?
Yeah, he told me, look, next time I will spend less time in Rosario Central and I will travel more, you know, because if we can use data like that, for sure we can filter faster, you know. And of course, I also spoke to his staff about Comparisonator, because it's one of the products that I consider really useful in this regard, because now that you made the app, I think the possibility to be everywhere, you know, and check immediately, it's fantastic. I don't know, Mihai,
I use it.
you also a scout
I use it.
and an agent. It's important, because
It's very
sometimes
important,
we
yeah.
spoke about colleagues. Hey, I have this player, what do you think? You check, you say, okay, yes, it can be interesting or not. You know, it's a way also to filter the people that get in touch with you, because
Otherwise, you lose time.
yeah, on a daily basis you speak with a lot of people that present you.
So Mihai, so this conversation is very interesting. So I want to continue with this. So, of course, to being having the knowledge of the whole world, or having a knowledge of a country, or having a knowledge of a city for the potential players. So, as in Romania. So you have a lots of knowledge about Romania, but some big, very good agents like Nicola and Tran can't. So is there a link between the agents and sharing these players to find the right team for a player?
To be honest with you, I don't work with Romanian agents. I just work alone, and I make my connection everywhere, around the world. Now I'm happy to work with Nick. So, yeah, I don't think so many agents use the data, especially in Romania, to use it, to scout for the players. Even in the clubs, I'm dubbed, some clubs use the data, you know. Basically, they are looking to like to watch the video, and they take decision for this. And unfortunately, again, in Romania, only few, let's say 3 max teams, they have the scout department. Otherwise, coach, owners, or sport director are looking for the players, you know. So because of this, we are now in the Romanian national team down, and this is the result, you know. So it's better to use data to improve your work and to try to raise the quality of your agency.
Yeah, so Tarkan, BATGUN, there is a lots of parts of an agency to consider with a player agreement or transfers or not transferring the player. So this is a huge decision, of course. And the combining the right player with the right club, so they need some information, and when they share this information all together inside the agencies, between the links, so they can improve a player and they can improve a country, of course. Like we do in Turkey, the very best players are playing in all around the world. So this is improving because they are looking at the first division and they are seeing players and seeing the other players. So it changes a country, right?
Well, the thing is, it's certainly what you're saying is right. And I have actually noticed something very interesting when MIHAI introduced me Daniel Pancu yesterday. When I understood the playing philosophy of the Romanian, because as you know, Nico, hundreds of players Romania produced, very good quality, from Hagi to Mutut, you name it, so many.
Yes.
And I asked that question to Pancu, but I wasn't actually aware that Pancu was very data oriented. So we made a product to understand this was built for agencies first. to understand, let's say, in the recruitment shop area, who is the best in each country at the age of 19. So when we sat down with Panku, we diagnosed all the Romanian passport players together around the world, and he knew all of them. So therefore, the scouting and recruitment knowledge of under 22 coach, if the data knowledge is high, the tool even helps you far better. Why? Early diagnosing of the player. So for example, amongst the audience, Sedat Hocam is here from Antalya Spor. He himself brought so many players, right, Hocam? So many players to Turkish football. And also, he's an analyst himself. He understands the numbers. If you understand the numbers, you bring better out of data. So therefore, I was very surprised in the knowledge of data knowledge of Daniel Pankovic, which I was very much amazed. He's the this day and age's head coach. And I will actually personally visit him in Romania to understand, because he identified so many stars that, I mean, comparisinator lets you see. The data only helps you to define. Then it's your job to follow this, combine with video, and go visit. So there's a misunderstanding that data is everything. Well, I'm a data person, but I'm myself an old person at the same time. But why, Nico, you know how precious the time is.
Yes.
You've been a sports director yourself. You've been in all around the agency, the coaches, the head coaches' agents is even more difficult. Because sometimes you need to support the coach with this type of thing and adjust them into the technology. Because everything is so fastly improving. And if we are not improving, we're falling behind. Someone else is advancing instead. Rapidly. Many young agencies, right? Many young scouts, young coaches. They are all aware of this world. Before the pandemics, the data was all right. But now, there's an element in this scala, but not everything. But just like diagnosing the sickness. And especially I watched Nico's diagnosis of the fibrillation, heart problems, right? And Nico was talking about Tarkan, because I lost my father with a heart attack and the fibrillation together. But if we had the technology at the time to understand the genetical situation of before, so we could have prevented. So, genetical technology is a technology, right? And diagnosing. So why you're using a microscope to identify the bad elements and microbes? So why you're using comparisinator to eliminate players, because there are hundreds. As I said before, when I was a director in Bursaspor, I was averaging 50 players a day. Then what happens? Let's say, literally, you can only spend 3-4 hours during the transfer time, right? So if it's a 50, you're talking about 200 hours a day. But the day is only 24 hours, and you only use 8 hours of it. So you need to have, if you want to investigate everything, you need to divide at least 20 people. Well, you don't have that manpower. So therefore, what we did, we invented a technology for diagnosing. Diagnosing who am I going to be watching? Because my time is very valuable. As teams, small teams, is, you know, maximum 2 people. And that's maximum. how many people in Pixwater? So Mark Cunham was here yesterday. So a team of 3.
Yeah.
Small clubs. So what are they going to do? They receive 50 players as well. Because the agencies, as Nico said, they don't do the proper analysis of the team. And when Sabatini asked that question, if you weren't prepared for it, what were you going to say?
No, he would pick up the phone.
Right? But what you wanted to say, okay, why do I need a right back? Nico? Oh, because your team plays in 3-5-2 format. And the one I have is the one you want. He goes to opposition third, goes to the line, and makes accurate crosses. He is number 1 in accurate crosses in Serie A. Ah, okay. Then, Sabatini, okay, Nico diagnosed something. Then, even I don't buy the player from you, if you called me again, the first person I pick up the call is Nico. Why? Because Nico comes with an argument.
Yeah, sure.
So we build the argument with a simple tool. Well, of course, as Nico and MIHAI said, there are a lot of other people bring reports, this, that, but the head coach himself knows. If he knows what he's talking about, you cause yourself an embarrassment. And you have only one opportunity if you're not ready for that meeting. Now in Zoom.
Yeah.
Because, for example, the worst scenario of in this industry that you think you know something. It's the worst enemy. You yourself is your worst enemy. Because if you're going to talk about a team, or if you're going to explain about the benefit of the data, you need to be prepared. You need to study that team. How many agencies really study the team that they are going to be proposing?
Sorry if I interrupt you, but
Yeah, please
again,
go.
there are different actors, in that, because an agent has to look after his player, mainly, and I think his duty is to support with data the player, like Mino used to do with Ibra. And that become a trigger for Ibra. Why? Because once you show some data to a player, the player automatically compare himself with others, and then if he has a certain willingness, he set goals. Okay, I did that, I want to improve, I want to be better, Intermediaries is different, because intermediaries are not stick to any particular players. They are looking, they are scouting, they are finding what they think can work for a club or another, then they prepare the presentation and they present the player. So they are...
That's a good agent.
Yes, but there's a different, type of work and different way to use data,
Of course.
But to simplify all what we have said, I think every one of us can simply ask yourself, imagine that you have to find the best talent in Brazil and you have never been in Brazil and there is no software available so far. What you are going to do? How you would do this research? In a very simple way. And this is also a conversation I got with Marcelo. I say, look, I will take a plane, I will go in São Paulo or Rio, I will try to find a bar, or a place where I know people gather together to speak about football, and I will ask them who they are considering the best talent in that area. It's a very simple thing, So why not using today tools, that can immediately bring the same information, valuable information, in a matter of a click. So again, if today you can choose to write letter to 50 people, and wait for the answer letter, like we used to do many, many years ago, or send a WhatsApp, what would you do? What is more effective? And when it comes about saving time, I think those tools are very important, because you can immediately have a main filter. Then you narrow, the research until you don't potentially find what you're looking for. But you have to start from somewhere, you know,
Somewhere, yes.
somehow. So this is, long story short, this is something that people has to consider today. The people that stick to the old way, it's like if they want to keep calling the people with the old phone, you know, when today you have a smartphone. So you need to evolve. We have friends and colleagues here that shows in the previous day how to use data to engage more fans. That's fantastic, because a club needs to know who their fans are, you know, how they do it. Do you think they're going to knock the door of every fan to see, good morning, I want to know about you, your family, how much t-shirt you bought in the past? Today, thanks to data, you can know how many t-shirts a fan brought, how many times he came to the match, how many liters of beer he drank in the stadium. So imagine how data can be precious for the football business overall. It's extremely important to consider data in the modern football. This is also part of what we are studying with FIFA in this diploma in club management, because it's impossible to continue to work for clubs, you know, in an old way. Football is not just ball and player running behind the ball. It's a much, much complex world, especially on a professional level. You know.
One question I have to ask you, actually. What was the real purpose behind that FIFA introduced this management course? Do they think that the clubs are mismanaged and therefore they need to educate?
Yeah, for sure. There are also stories that we all knew, you know, also recent story about bad management of also important clubs, you know. And there is always a reason why, you know, a club end up to have a million of debts, you know. It's not something that happened because of coronavirus only, you know. It's we use as excuse coronavirus for a long time already, you know. But the problem in some clubs there were before and there were now, there are now. So what are the reasons behind that? It's simply that sometimes there are no professional people working for the club. Unfortunately, today in football, there's still too many people that are in the club because they're a friend of a friend of a friend, you know, not based on a meritocracy, you know. And this is why FIFA decided to highlight what do you need to be a good executive, what you need to be a good manager, because a good manager can manage well a club, wisely a club, can support the owner, you know. And sometimes owner of a club, you know, this is why I'm happy that now more and more funds are going into football, because when it comes to investors, you know, that put money and expected to generate revenues from their investment, they are not, you know, waiting that long before to fire people, because if they have an expectation, if they have a plan to generate profits, you know, they have to generate these profits. And I think a sport director today, if you want to, you know, summarize in two ways his capabilities. The sport director either generate plus value for the club, so generate money by trading players or other kind of activities, or bring achievements. So either you win or you make money. If you don't succeed in those two elements, you have to, you know, sit together with the club and understand why that's not the case. Because there are also other ways, again, fan engagement, other ways to generate money, make the club more attractive in order to attract more sponsors. So today, if you have to judge me, if I am a sport director in a club, I have to come to you with those two arguments. If I don't achieve any sports result, if I don't improve, you know, the profitability of the club, then what I'm there for? Yeah. You know? And this is what FIFA want to show, you know, that it's important to give the right knowledge to professionals in the business, to show that if those professionals will work for clubs, those clubs will perform better.
Bravo.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
We are time's up. We were time's up. And that was a great conversation that I had no need to interrupt and ask any questions. So this is the most vulnerable thing, I think, to discuss within together as a coffee shop, coffee talk. So thanks a lot for this
Thank you so
very
much.
good conversation.
Pleasure.
And thanks a lot for listening for us. Thank you.
And we will have a certificate for you, actually. So, yes, certifications. Thank you for the great speech, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dede.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, before you leave, as a picture.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, we will continue after a 10-minute break with a software effectiveness. It's a new, trendy, different topic. Thank you. See you soon.